by Crackling Doom. He's against Cameron McGregor, who is playing green-white hardened scales. We saw this deck a little bit last weekend. Not a great performance from that deck, though Jeskai Black, we saw very good stuff from that as we were underway here in round number 1.
And it wouldn't surprise me if hardened scales was one of those decks that we saw at least for a little while here. This is pretty common post-rotation. The power level of the format goes down, but the +1/+1 counter synergies that you saw in Khans of Tarkir block, well, that's still here, and there's less competition now. So I think that green-white hardened scales may go from a total fringe deck to, you know, something that sees a little bit of play.
The big question is, can the deck operate when it doesn't draw hardened scales?
Yes.
There needs to be some proof that that's the case, and perhaps we will find out soon enough. Hangerback Walker here for Cameron is how he's getting started. Dylan's going to search for a Prairie Stream with his Polluted Delta.
Something that is nice about the hardened scales deck, though, is not really struggling to play with good creatures. A lot of them, you know, you have Hangerback Walker, you have Den Protecta, Mcgregory Hydra is a solid threat, so you're not really straining. The only you know, payoff type of cards or, you know, really +1/+1 counter specific cards, Servant of the Scale, naturally, and that's not even that bad to cast on the second turn of the game. And Cameron here with 2 main deck copies of Abzan Falconeer.
Here is Jace Vryn's Prodigy, the first of what will likely be many of these this weekend. A third land there for Cameron is a Plains. And now there's a Mcgregory Hydra. So the counter theme is certainly online right now. Donegan going to take a look at Mcgregory Hydra. We saw this debut at the Season 3 Invitational in New Jersey. Todd Anderson playing this card. And, you know, though Todd didn't have a great tournament that weekend, this card was very impressive.
Absolutely. Grows very fast. The loss of Gather Courage is significant. Yeah. That was one of the better cards you could pair with Mcgregory Hydra.
Soulfire Grandmaster the draw here for Donegan. We'll see how he wants to go about using that chase. Got to remember, Dylan, a lot of experience with Jeskai decks. When he did win the Invitational in Seattle last year at the back end of the year to qualify for the Players' Championship, he got it done with Jeskai tokens back then, and he's always been a fan of casting Mantis Rider. And it looks like he's going to do that right now. So, in for 3 in the air will come Donegan. McGregor's going to fall down to 16. And it's a good start here for both players, honestly. Land number 4 there for Cameron is a Forest.
And Cameron just acknowledging here that he missed the Mcgregory Hydra trigger last turn. It does trigger off of both players' spells.
Yep. McGregor has an Avatar of the Resolute, and that hurts, actually, that he did miss the counter now quite a bit on the Mcgregory Hydra. But now that'll get a counter, too. I suppose he could have stacked that in such a way that was actually in his favor. So that's actually unfortunate as well, because he could stack it. He could have it so that Mcgregory Hydra gets a counter, then Avatar resolves, and the Avatar would actually get 2 counters, so.
Yeah, in fact, I
think he might actually be forced.
I don't believe it can resolve like this.
Yeah.
Because Mcgregory Hydra triggers when the spell is cast.
Correct.
And Servant of the Scale looks when
Avatar of the Resolute.
Avatar of the Resolute, excuse me, looks when it comes to the battlefield. Yeah. Just the board state as is this cannot occur like this.
So these players are getting the board state correct here at this stage. So
right. If McGregor announced the trigger on the Hydra, then that happens first, and then Avatar comes into play. There's no way to end up with 1 counter.
Correct.
Yeah, because once we're at this stage where
So Bloodstained Mire going to be sacrificed here for Dylan as they're working on the board state. We'll see what land he wants to search up.
all right, looks like we got everything cleaned up here.
Now we're going to have a Crackling Doom probably kill one of these, right? That's probably how this works.
Yes.
After getting it all
Okay,
situated,
yeah.
now we have a Crackling Doom, make it, that's completely irrelevant.
Well, it is relevant. It does determine what dies.
I suppose that's true. I suppose that's
Still
true.
matters.
Yes. Off to a great start this morning.
Yeah.
Everybody just getting their coffee
Firing
in.
on all cylinders.
Yeah, everybody just getting their coffee. It's kicking in. There's a counter. Now the biggest creature will die. Biggest creature is Avatar the Resolute, so you don't have a choice.
Yeah, 5's greater than 4.
There we go.
Got that good. That's
Yep.
good.
Your coffee's already kicked in.
Yeah.
That's good.
Doing math.
Mana Strider's going to attack for 3.
Yep.
Just numbers upon numbers upon numbers as McGregor will take a draw. Canopy Vista's land number 5. There's an Avatar the Resolute. Another 5/4, and the Managorger Hydra will grow. So starting to get into a range that Dylan has to be a little bit scared of.
Well, the issue here is, and this was an issue for every green-white deck we watched over the weekend, very poor against creatures with activated powers. Jace was a particular vulnerability. Soulfire Grandmaster was not great for that deck either. Besides Jamoka's command, the deck doesn't interact with the board very effectively, and if you have a removal spell to flash back, and Donegan's got one of the best ones you can flash back in Crackling Doom, that's a problematic place for green-white decks to be in.
It almost, in a way, it forces you, as a green-white player, to have Jamoka's Command or Valor Stance or whatever removal spell, Silk Wrap if you're playing that right away.
And McGregor has had Valorous Stance in his hand the whole time.
Yeah.
Just the threat Dylan's putting on the table here, he can't kill with Valorous Stance, nor can he protect his creatures from Crackling Doom.
Jace is going to flip. The Telepath Unbound has made its way to the battlefield. Dylan going to sacrifice a Flooded Strand. We'll see what land he wants to search up. He'll go with the basic planes down to 13. McGregor in the lead for the moment. Jace going to take down. Here's Soulfire Grandmaster. That's a good thing to play before Crackling Doom, I would say. Dylan says, I haven't cast a spell just yet. You're assuming I'm going to play Crackling Doom. And now I am. So the Hydra will grow and then it'll die. Dylan will gain some life here from the Crackling Doom thanks to the Soulfire Grandmaster giving the spell lifelink. Mantis Rider hasn't made its way into the red zone just yet. Now, when this deck is firing like this, it looks very hard to beat.
Yes. And one of the big issues with the deck is just how good is Crackling Doom in any given matchup.
Yes.
And it's different from board state to board state too. Avatar the Resolute, really good shape here as it's got 4 toughness with reach, so Mantis Rider is checked for the
It's hanging
timing.
out. It's hanging back on D. As it should be.
We saw spots where the only creature that was being put into play was Hangerback Walker, or Hangerback Walker grew to a point where Crackling Doom was just not castable. We also saw moments of it killing things like, you know, Dragon Lord Ojutai. Still had its good moments too.
Let's see what McGregor's going to play this turn. Looks like he's going to cast a Morph. Avatar the Resolute doing some nice work here on defense. There is another Crackling Doom there in the graveyard, however, for McGregor. Or, excuse me, for Donegan. Now McGregor's going to attack. Looks like Soulfire Grandmaster may jump in the way. And it's going after Jace. Remember, the Avatar of the Resolute has some weird keywords on it.
It's a weird collection.
Yeah, reach and trample. So in a way, it is good on offense and defense. The only thing it doesn't have is vigilance, I suppose.
Yeah, vigilance is that's the enchantment you want.
Yeah.
What are vigilance granting enchantments? Eternal Warrior, I think.
I think one is just vigilance.
Oh yeah, I think. Yeah, you're right.
There's just a card called vigilance. Let's just get to work.
Yeah.
1 white.
Simple.
Just good design.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're going to name the keyword something.
It's like regeneration.
Right.
That's an aura too.
Well, regeneration appeared in the same set with the keyword.
Correct.
I don't know if the same thing is true of vigilance. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's not.
You don't know everything about the card vigilance? I'm a little surprised by that.
No.
I would think that, given your knowledge, especially of the older cards, I think you just have it right at the tip of your tongue.
You'd think that, and yet.
Here we are. The attack for 3 by Donegan. Going to bring McGregor down to 6, I believe. There's a Sunken Hollow. Dylan's follow-up is another copy of Soulfire Grandmaster. Pass that turn back. It's time to unmorph something. I believe Den Protector is the weapon of choice, and it is. But again, you got to remember, that is a good return. I will say that. I was going to say, the one thing about Den Protector, a fantastic thing to return with that are just cheap spells.
Yes.
We've seen Eternal Witness effects like this over many years. Snapcaster Mage 2, even Jace. You want to be bringing back cheap spells to cast again because spells are so powerful. In this situation, that creature that he's just returned, Avatar of the Resolute, that thing's going to be pretty big to slow down Mantis Rider.
McGregor is at 6, so he can get burned out from this spot, and especially Crackling Doom is going to be very hard for him to beat at this point. But this is a really good setup.
Yeah, I don't hate his positioning right now. Let's see what the follow-up is. This is going to be his last card.
I mean, if he's been sitting here on the Valorous stance, there is an argument here for him to go up to 4 with the Hangerback Walker, break it open. I don't know if that's worth doing on the main phase necessarily.
Sure.
But
Den Protector and the Avatar are going to come in. Pretty healthy attack. Pass the turn back over to Donegan. Donegan falls down to 7. Dylan draws a Plains. He's also got a Battlefield Forge in hand at this point. Not a lot going on here for Donegan. If he draws a spell with Soulfire Grandmasters on the battlefield, obviously in great shape. He's got plenty of mana to work with, but it doesn't appear that's happened just
well,
yet.
I believe his spell is Complete Disregard, which
Okay.
is not horrible here. But the issue here is McGregor has some pretty huge creatures in play.
Yeah, that's
Complete Disregard is not going to help him there.
It's a bit of an issue, yes. Interesting splash card there, I must say.
Well, we saw exiling at a premium last week.
We did.
People were going out of their way to play with removal that exiled.
Hangerback Walker going to grow. Dylan says, I have a response.
Hold up.
Yep. Going to activate Soulfire Grandmaster, play Complete Disregard. That'll exile Hangerback Walker, and Disregard will go back to Donegan's hand. And pass the turn back. Now McGregor will draw. Again, still stuck with that Valorous stance in hand. Some big creatures on the battlefield, however. I'm curious just how deep these decks are going to go as far as the Black Splash is concerned. McGregor is going to attack with all of his creatures.
Well, it definitely does not appear hard in terms of getting the mana online. That's easy enough to do. You have to do some oddness with your fetch land distribution to make sure that you can fetch for black. You have more Bloodstained Mires and Polluted Deltas in the deck, but it's not hard to do.
Looks like it might be time for a double block there with the Grandmasters. Donegan giving that a thought.
So I think that Dylan needs to block in such a way where Crackling Doom is still an out for him. And he can do that by getting one of the avatars off of the table. He has Complete Disregard in hand, so he has an answer to Den Protector ready to go. And then he has one more removal spell and the board's clean.
Oh, there's a double block. However, that is going to copy a Feat of Resistance on Den Protector.
I think he's looking at going to...
This may be lethal. Well, maybe. He's got lifelinkers out there, so.
Yeah.
And now Valorous stance is going to save the Avatar of the Resolute.
Yeah, so this is not lethal this turn.
But Dylan's board gets pretty wrecked here.
Yeah.
You see the players will shore up the life totals, and Dylan realizes, I don't have any more life to work with. So Cameron McGregor is going to win game number 1 here over Dylan Donegan. Green-white hardened scales up a game here over Jeskai Black, as we're going to get ready here for game number 2. Dylan appears to be a little frustrated with how that game went, but
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of oddness going on there.
Yes, there was. As we take a look at the sideboards here, we will start with Donegan. He's got 3 copies of Duress, 2 Disdainful Strokes, a Negate, a Dispel, an Exert Influence, an Arashan Cleric, a Roast, 2 Surge of Righteousness, 2 Fiery Impulse, and another copy of Complete Disregard.
As much removal as possible here. I think he'll take the copies of Fiery Impulse, the Complete Disregard. I think this is a great matchup for Exert Influence as well. McGregor's deck's not that fast, so I think Exert Influence is really well suited for this matchup. I think you could see the Roast and the Dispel coming as well.
For the Green-White Hardened Scales player here, Cameron McGregor, what 15 is he working with?
Arashan Cleric, 3 copies. Hidden Dragon Slayer, Evolutionary Leap, Vita Resistance, 2 copies of Inspiring Call, 2 copies of Plummet, 2 copies of Surge of Righteousness, 2 copies of Gideon Ally of Zendikar, and a Flooded Strand. Nothing really jumps out here to me except for the additional copy of Vita Resistance. I guess this is not a bad matchup for Inspiring Call as well. And I can see some of the anti-Mantis Rider measures come in here as well, maybe something like Plummet.
Mantis Rider is just a card that Cameron's deck has some difficulty with. I know that he drew Avatar of the Resolute that game, a couple copies of that to be able to shore himself up against that card, but he still has some weakness to it.
And it's a creature that's likely to die as well. If Donegan has Crackling Doom, Avatar is most likely to be the biggest thing in play. On most boards, it's going to die to Valor's Stance as well. So that's a card that if McGregor draws and resolves, he's already in very good shape. So he needs to shore up the circumstances where either he draws it and it gets killed, or he doesn't draw it at all.
Well, these players will shuffle up here for game number 2, and we will talk about SCG Game Night. Now, as you may have seen, we do have the hippo on our lapel for the month of October. But November, December coming soon, and we got some new stuff coming down the pipeline.
Absolutely. You can go over to StarCityGames.com for more information. Find the game night closest to you. Every month we send out new kits with new pins and foil tokens. Stores can run game night however they want to, any day of the week, any format they want. Just get players in the store for some fun and friendly magic. We have the rest of the year's kits announced already. This is the October kit right now. November is the otter, and then December, coming up soon, is the reindeer. So if you want to get signed up for game night, head over to StarCityGames.com/game night or contact your Star City Games in-store play representative.
Dylan Donegan, the Season 4 Invitational Champion last year, one of 569 players here in Atlanta. He's young, only 18 years old, from Cary, North Carolina, but a lot of success thus far in his career. An Invitational top 8, as I did mention, with that win, 6 Open Series top 8s. The youngest Invitational champion of all time, a big basketball fan. I think you've battled against him in basketball,
No, there was some talk that we were going to go at it at the Players' Championship last year. He was bringing up his AAU credentials. I don't actually know how much he's traveled for basketball, but I'm going to take him down to the post. I got a little bit of weight on Dylan, so if we play, I'm going to take him down to the hurt locker.
He's going to have to muscle up a little bit,
A little bit.
Yeah. He's a young man. Just, don't hurt him too bad down there in the post. That's all I ask. Don't hurt him too bad.
No promises.
Well, we are underway here in game number 2. Donegan starts things off with a Sunken Hollow and now a Jace. We saw him start the game off with Jace last time, and against a green-white deck, you think it's one of the better plays that you can have, and it's not like his Jace really died.
Yeah, no, he got good mileage out of it. Got to loot a few times. He had to flashback a Crackling Doom. It absorbed an attack. Wasn't bad for Jace. Didn't win the game on its own, but
here's Hangerback Walker. So both players off to really good starts again. We'll see what Donegan's third turn brings. Remember, last game he started with Jason and Mantis Rider. What one could argue is Jeskai's best start and did not win that particular game. So, and now you see a little bit of the issue with this deck. Donegan does have a Crackling Doom in hand that he can't cast right now. And I'm not saying he would want to cast it on Hangerback Walker, but just some of the sensitivity of the mana base.
Exactly. Well, the mana is good to go here. I mean, he can Bloodstain Mire for a mountain and cast it if he was feeling so inclined. The issue is just Hangerback Walker makes this card look bad sometimes. McGregor is likely to cooperate. He's got a lot of large creatures in his deck. So, and if he's casting nothing else, Dylan's got other plays that he can make. Also notice that he has Jeskai Charm in hand. So he has the capability of Jeskai Charming the Hangerback Walker on top of the deck, which is already a good play. And then that frees up the Crackling Doom to get rid of a creature that doesn't have a good death trigger.
Jeskai Charm maybe feel a little underplayed to you?
If people are in the market for exiling removal, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a card that sees a little bit of an uptick.
Abzan Falconeer, a limited superstar in its format, that's for sure, and a way to get damage through in this deck.
Absolutely, and that's been a classic issue for green-white decks. It's just how are you punching through when the ground gets locked up a little bit.
Now,
Falconeer is not. I mean, this is not a pretty way to do it, but
it's a way.
It's a way.
Now, one thing to note here, Falconer doesn't have to have a +1/+1 counter to grant its ability. It's just a static ability. Each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has flying, so you don't have to Outlast to give everything else flying. Hanging Back Walker, for example, right now, it's flying on over for 1.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't a card that you want to play a bunch of copies of, but, you know, maybe 2 in the main deck.
There's 2. Yeah, 2 seems good to me.
There's Crackling Doom. Falconer down. Back over to Donegan, we're going to go. And Jace's going to go active again. This will allow it to flip in just a moment here. Picked up a copy of Prairie Stream. Looks like Delta's going to go to the graveyard. Jace will flip. See how Dylan wants to use it. He's going to move it up, slow down Hanger Back Walker, play a Prairie Stream. That'll enter the battlefield untapped. And now pass the turn back over to McGregor.
Dylan, I believe, sitting on Jeskai Charm and Ojutai's command, so has a lot of good ways to play this.
I've seen worse places to be. Dylan also sporting a copy of Dragon Master Outcast this weekend, something that we saw play a big role for Clay Spickelmeyer last weekend. It's got a great combo with Ojutai's command.
And it's definitely a card I would want against these green-white decks. Again, they are not very effective at answering creatures with utility effects.
Windswept Heath there from McGregor allowed him to search up a land. Now he's going to play a Morph. Ojutai's command cannot be cast fast enough here for Dylan. He will counter that creature and draw a card. It was a Den Protector. Back to Donegan will go. Another Ojutai's command is the draw.
And we're probably just going to see a repeat of this turn. Plus, as the Jace sits back on a handful of really good instants.
Very different from the game we saw from Jeskai last game from Dylan.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that's some of the upsides and downsides of Jeskai, I think. You're able to play some different games based on what you draw, but sometimes you're not able to play the game that you want to play.
And the Jeskai decks feel like they are definitely behind against decks that want to brawl when the draws are all creatures on both sides of the table. Cameron's getting a lot more mileage out of his creatures just on a stats level. I think Dylan's best served playing this kind of game where he's just 2-for-1ing and timing his removal spells well and, you know, getting value out of Jace. I think that's a much more effective recipe for him.
Hardened Scales is here now. Mana Gorger Hydra got countered by that Ojutai's command.
You know, one of Dylan's best plays as far as creatures are concerned is Manus Rider. He gets that for 3 mana. For 2 mana, McGregor gets Avatar Resolute, which is often quite a bit better than Manus Rider on a pound-for-pound basis.
Yeah, I think so. It's hard to argue that. It was certainly good last game.
But this game plan of, you know, Crackling Dooms and Jeskai Charms and Ojutai's commands, Donegan would dig through time in his hand as well. This is the game that's harder for McGregor to answer because all he can really do is cast a creature. That's what he can do.
Another Ojutai's command was a draw there for Donegan. He searched up a Smoldering Marsh last turn with that polluted Delta. Jace going up again. You saw Hanging Back Walker get 2 counters because of the Hardened Scales that's on the battlefield. Flooded Strand here for Dylan. And we'll see what his follow-up will be. Hanging Back Walker starting to grow to a spot that's a little uncomfortable, but Jeskai Charm just probably has that covered.
Yeah.
It's Tasigur. So Donegan will delve away some of the cards here in his graveyard to be able to play the 4/5. Tasigur, a pretty nice inclusion here. 2 copies for Donegan. This is a deck that really utilizes its graveyard quite a bit.
And, you know, Dylan again gets to really play this effective instant speed game where now activating Tasigur at the end of the turn, if McGregor doesn't do anything, another option.
There's Avatar the Resolute. See if Donegan wants to go with Ojutai's command again. It appears that he does. He's going to sacrifice this flooded strand. Search up an island. I think we'll see the counterspell on the way here in just a moment. There it is. Counter and draw. 3 makeshift copies of Dismiss. Or I suppose if you want to go old school, Exclude.
Dismiss is older than Exclude.
You're right. Is it?
Dismiss was in Tempest.
Tempest. Exclude was, hold on, Invasion?
Yep.
Nice, all right. See, I got the old card knowledge a little bit.
Yeah. Not an encyclopedia, but enough to work with. And now I think Dylan's gotten to the point of no return. There was one last opportunity there for Mcgregor. If he had a way to destroy his own hangerback walker for good effect, where he could have gone wide around Dylan's Tassiger and Jace and handful of removal spells. But now that he's on just the 4/4 hangerback walker, at some point, I think this Jeskai Charm is going to get him.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Jace is going to tick up. Just depends on how Dylan wants to go about doing things. But he is in the driver's seat now. He's got all the cards. He's got all the decisions to be made. And when you're in this position as a Jeskai player, life is pretty good.
Yep.
And all of their cards, really, you know, it feels like they all have kind of, you know, split card functionality. There's so many different things you can do with them.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another copy of Hangerback Walker. And that's going to resolve. It'll get 2 counters because of hardened skills. Mcgregor still sitting there with just 1 card in hand. Does make you wonder what that is.
Well, pretty confident it's not Valorous Answer Dramoka's command, as there were opportunities last turn for Mcgregor to use that word in his hand. So I don't know if Dylan's going to play around much here. You might just think that it's very likely the last card in his hand is a land.
Donegan going to go with Dig Through Time now. Going to delve away a lot of the graveyard, leaving Ojutai's command down there. Take a look at the top 7 and take 2 with him. Rest of those cards going down to the bottom. And now here is Jeskai Charm. Hangerback Walker going back on top. Now we'll see if he wants to maybe try to turn the corner here with his Tassiger. Start getting into the red zone. Manish Rider might make it a little easier now, too. Oh, hey, hey.
All right, we got an emblem.
We are using Jace.
And I like this line of play a lot from Dylan just because of time. He's down a game, 22 minutes on the clock. If he tried to win this game without a Jace emblem, it's probably going to take a while. This is going to be pretty fast.
Yeah. Manish Rider. That'll mill 5 cards over. Got some damage coming, too. Keep in mind the Hangerback Walker that was put on top from Jeskai Charm, that just got milled over. Mm-hmm. So we don't know what McGregor's draw is going to be. Complete disregard in hand here for Donegan. McGregor not going to cast a Flooded Strand. He'll play a Mana Gorger Hydra.
Okay, well.
Complete disregard can take care of that. As can many other things right now. Donegan, I don't love this. 2 counters, yeah. Five, okay. Yeah, I don't think Wild Slash should be taking care of that creature because it gets 2 counters. Am I wrong about this?
Yeah, if my understanding of Mana Gorger, Hydra, and Hardened Scales is correct.
Yeah.
Because it looked like McGregor was going to put a die on there.
Well, he was reaching for a die, and if you put 1 counter, you're automatically going to get 2 because of Hardened Scales. So yeah, that should still be on the battlefield.
Yeah, complete disregard would have worked because it would have gone up to a 3/3.
Absolutely.
And then we're fine.
Yeah. Players going to have to work on these game states here.
Yeah. Been some sloppiness.
Yeah.
Even the previous turn with the Jeskai charm, I wasn't through with the sequencing. I would have played complete disregard first on the 2/2, because if the last card in McGregor's hand is something, you draw it out on that spell most likely, and then you know your Jeskai charm is resolving.
There's complete disregard in response to the Hangerback Walker activation. Hangerback Walker blocks, then it wants to activate. Yep. Complete disregard exiles it. Mana Gorger Hydra is larger, but it can't block flyers, so it's only getting 3 points of damage. And now he's got a Kraken Doom at the ready for the Mana Gorger Hydra and the necessary mana to cast it. He will trigger Jace from the complete disregard. Now here's another copy of Jace. Hydra gonna grow, gonna mill. Now we're gonna head back McGregor's way. Donegan wants to take a look at the graveyard here because he is playing against a deck that does have Den Protector. So it's worth kind of knowing what your opponent can potentially draw to.
Also, there's a good chance there's just some weirdos in your opponent's deck.
Get a little info.
Creatures that utilize +1/+1 counters in some capacity. Other weird +1/+1 counter effects.
Here's Hangerback Walker. It'll come with 4 counters because the way the Hardened Scales work doesn't double things. So
right, it's additive.
Yep.
And Dylan just pointing, I've got Mana Strider, I can flash back Jeskai Charm, you're at 7. Let's go to the third game.
So that's exactly what's going to happen. Dylan Donegan going to tie things up here against Cameron McGregor. Jeskai Black, Greenwood Hardened Scales getting ready here for game number 3. See if the players can clean up the sloppiness a little bit here. Clearly still waking up here this morning.
Yeah, this has not been the sharpest round I've seen from Dylan in my, year and change of covering him.
I think that's a common saying, not fluid ballet.
No, that's not necessarily a common saying.
I said your common saying.
No, actually,
it's common to you.
It was that is cribbed from Get Big or Die Trying. Jeff Cunningham's magnificent invitational report. Believe it appears in part 1, early on.
Yeah?
It's a masterpiece.
It's not one I've read enough.
Yeah.
I can say that.
It is worth a read. Anyhow, that phrase appears in that. Come on, Dylan.
He's going to the coffee right now. Look at him go.
What's going on
Look
here?
at him go. He's going to the coffee. He's learning from you.
No, don't say that.
Well, game number 3 here going to be underway in just a moment for Donegan and McGregor. Greenwood Hardened Scales, Jeskai Black. They've shown off some of their more powerful draws and some of the things that these decks can do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Green White Hardened Scales deck is very good at brawling. It's got a lot of creatures that are pretty sizable threats on their own, and with Hardened Scales in the mix, they're even larger. And that game, you got to see Dylan just play a very, very good instant speed tempo game. Got a lot of value. Ojutai's Command for 2-for-1s, I believe 3 times. Did a lot with Jace.
No, Ojutai's Command was busted in that game.
Yes.
It was very, very, very good. But that's no surprise when you're playing against a base green white deck. At least if you're a little ahead or kind of even, Command's going to be good there.
There is some talk about a card that looked poised to break out being Dispel. And Ojutai's Command, if that card's prevalent, I think creature decks need to consider touching blue for Dispel. You saw, McGregor's just got a lot of 3 and 4 mana creatures in his deck. His deck is not particularly fast, and he's going to get into a lot of spots where he just has to cast something into the jaws of Ojutai's Command. And if you played against Cryptic Command, you know how bad that is.
Well, as these players are ready here for game number 3, we'll talk about the Star City Games newsletter very quickly. It is your source for Magic the Gathering news, and it is very easy to sign up for.
Yeah, all the best content from Star City Games, cultivated by Cedric Phillips. You get all the information about the Open Series, a summary of the previous week's event, plus a selected match of the week for you to watch, exclusive deck lists and advice from some of our premium columnists, and an exclusive cardboard crack comic. Best of all, signing up is free over at starcitygames.com/newsletter.
Game number 3 about to be underway. Players are going to take a look at their opening hands here, and we will watch Jeskai Black and Greenwood Hardened Scales one more time to put a conclusion here on round number 1. at SCG Live, hashtag SCGATL, all weekend long for your tweets as we make it through 9 rounds of action today. Mcgregory going to start off with his namesake card. It's a Hardened Scales.
The nut draw.
Yeah,
there it is.
I mean, this will be a test, right, to see exactly how good his deck is. If he can start with this card, you know, if you start with this card, how good is your deck then?
Turn 2, Hanger Back Walker. Turn 3, Activate. Already, that's a great draw.
Yeah.
He gets to do that out in front of Complete Disregard as well. It's good stuff.
The times when we watch this deck play, rarely do we see it ever start with a turn 1 Hardened Scales.
I don't know if, I think this is the first time that I've seen it.
Bloodstained Mire is where Donegan will start. McGregor with a land, and hey, there's Hanger Back Walker, 2 counters, pass the turn back over to Donegan. This is exactly what you were talking about.
Yep.
Fiery Impulse is going to take care of that. 2 Thopters on the way so long as Cameron does remember his trigger.
Yeah, this is not Magma Spray. So.
No. Donegan will draw. Now, another thing to note here is he picks up a copy of Crackling Doom. Having to search for just a basic mountain on turn 1, maybe he wanted to search for a battle land and didn't have the opportunity.
The sequencing is always challenging. It's hard to guess because you do want to get your battle lands into play early so you have as many colors of mana online as possible. On the other hand, you do want to go get basics in certain spots. So your battle lands that you play later come into play untapped. So it's not a straightforward thing. Battlefield Forge in hand, I believe he can go get Sunken Hollow, and then everything's fine to cast.
And you're online. Yeah, your mana for what you're trying to do.
You can't cast Jeskai Charm, I believe, is the problem. No, you can still cast.
Yeah, you're there.
You can cast Jeskai Charm. You can cast Crackling Doom.
The thinking that we're doing is the same thing he's doing right now. Gonna search up a basic plane.
He also just might need to play Soulfire Grandmaster on the second turn of the game and say, we'll worry about the mana later. Yep. I just need to get something into play.
Again, he's kind of being pulled in a couple different directions here. And there's the Grandmaster. McGregor with the Wooded Foothills very quickly. He can search up a Canopy Vista if he'd like. And it will enter the battlefield untapped. There is the Vista. What's the big follow-up here? Managorger Hydra. Here come the Thopters. And now we're going back Dylan Donegan's way. He'll sacrifice that polluted delta very quickly. See what land he wants to search up. Not much of a surprise there with the Sunken Hollow. I'll give him the 2 colors of mana that he's missing.
Yeah, red-white Sunken Hollow seems like the way to set it up for this deck.
Yep.
Because I do not believe you have any blue-black spells in the deck.
At least not yet.
At least not yet.
There's Crackling Doom. That'll take care of Managorger Hydra because Managorger Hydra will trigger, it will get counters, it'll be the largest creature on the battlefield, and then Crackling Doom will see that, take care of it. McGregor takes 2 as well, and Donegan gets to gain 2, and then do that again as far as dealing 2 and gaining 2 with the attack from Soulfire Grandmaster, so a good turn there for Dylan. It's a morph. Here come Thopters. 17 to 15 here in favor of Donegan as he's untapping and he's taking a draw step. Ochai's command in hand, just picked up a copy of Roast. Also has copies of Jace. Here is Roast. Donegan will gain a whole bunch of life from that too.
And Jace plus Roast is a perfect turn here for Donegan.
It's a very, very good one, that's for sure.
It's a huge gain of life. Interacts with the board, and Jace has a lot of great flashback targets for next turn.
A plane's there for McGregor. Here's an Avatar. But not growing. no creatures on the battlefield with +1/+1 counters. Couple of attacks here from the Thopter tokens. Not going to fall down to 22, but feels like he's in the driver's seat right now.
Absolutely. And you would have seen, I'm pretty sure you would have just seen Dromoka's command right then and there if it was an option. Would have been really good alongside Hardened Scales. And there's 2 powerful creatures with an activated effect on Donegan's side. So McGregor's hand's probably not a whole lot if that was his turn.
Here comes Soulfire Grandmaster. There's a block. And now here's Valorous Stance. We might see a response here from Donegan.
I think that Donegan was anticipating that Valorous Stance could be a card in hand. There's 2 mana up. There's not really been anything for McGregor to do with Valorous Stance the whole game. I think that this attack from Donegan was in part trying to probe for information.
Well, he does lose the Soulfire Grandmaster. Gains a little bit of life out the door. But now Donegan's got to figure out how he wants to move forward here. Hasn't activated Jace yet. If he does, it'll flip. Turn to the Telepath Unbound, and maybe there's some flashing back to be done, but Donegan's just going to pass the turn back here. Oshai's command at the ready.
Yeah, the issue is if he flashes back, say Crackling Doom, then his Jace just dies.
Yep.
So I don't think things are so bad here for Donegan. You know, he has Oshai's command in hand, so we can just hold that up for 1 turn.
He also just has a lot of life to work with. Here's Mcgregory Hydra. I think we'll see command. The question is modes. And it looks like he wants to get Soulfire Grandmaster back instead of drawing a card.
It's looking like this is shaping up to be a damage race here. And I think Donegan wants to gain the 5 life off of Roast or the 2 life off of Crackling Doom.
Plains the draw. Now we'll activate Chase. Picked him another copy of Soulfire Grandmaster. He's drawn a lot of those. So easy to discard 1. Jace is here. Starts at 5. Some good cards to flash back in the graveyard. Roast, Crackling Doom, Fiery Impulse.
Another Jace in hand, too, so he doesn't have to be too concerned with protecting this one.
Another Soulfire Grandmaster. Ticking down. I think we're going to target Crackling Doom, yep. Gain some life. Give some beats. Good turn there for Donegan. See if McGregor can match it as we head back his way. And that is going to do it. He cannot. Dylan Donegan going to win this match here over Cameron McGregor. 2-1 for Donegan. A good start to his day with Jeskai Black taking care of Green Hardened Scales for the former Invitational champion. And Jeskai Black kind of flexing its muscles there a little bit. There's a lot of different ways you can go about building the deck, a lot of different things you can do with the deck, but the power level of the deck is pretty high.
Yeah, for sure. And then you saw there's just a huge gulf in the power level of the spells in the respective decks. Creature to creature, even without Hardened Scales, I don't think McGregor is at a deficit. I actually think pound for pound his creatures may be better, but instants and creatures with activated powers are a place where Dylan gets a pretty huge edge.